Hi, I'm Shayna.
And I'm Tracy, and we are the creators of The Pump a Dump Show. We are moms, but we were women first. And in this podcast, we explore what it's like to be a woman who also happens to be a mom.
Before we were moms, we were women. Before we were moms, we were chilling. We were pumping and dumping. We're talking about something. This is the Pump a Dump Podcast.
Welcome back, breeders.
Breeders, what up? What up? There I am.
She's back.
I'm back. It's not from helium because helium's running out. Did you hear about that?
We could
I
talk
told you
about
about
helium.
We'll talk about that later.
You guys, we are going to do another episode about sex and relationships.
We're bringing back a guest. We're bringing back a former guest.
If you listened to, I think it was our third episode called Going Down to Pound Town, which is what we like to call doing the deed.
We're not going to say doing the nasty because Amanda would not.
It ain't nasty.
She would not approve.
We've been thinking a lot about some posts on our Band of Mothers private Facebook group where people are legitimately struggling with connection to their partner.
Mm-hmm.
And not only from an intimacy standpoint, but just,
Coexisting.
And how do you deal with that? Maybe you just cannot figure out a way to remember that you like each other.
Yes. And also you cannot figure out a way to slow down and just breathe and actually enjoy this life we're living rather than just running on a treadmill, trying to get the kids everywhere and do everything and all the pressures of being a mother and an adult. And sometimes our marriages, that's an easy thing to let slide.
Right. And
So-
sometimes that's okay. I mean, you're not always.
Well, yeah, you go through. We all go through ups and downs.
We had a funny thing happen last week where I thought that I wanted to do it, but we were both really tired. And so I brought it up when we got into bed that night and I was like, hey, you want to fool around? And usually any other day he would have been like, yes, absolutely. But for some reason he was just kind of like, okay, hold on, give me a minute. And so I could tell that he was really tired. And as soon as I said it, didn't really want to do it either. And so it was one of those where you try
so hard.
We were just kind of trying and it just wasn't working and everything was super awkward. And then we both kind of stopped and it was fine. And then he was just kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm so tired. And I was like, gosh, I'm sorry that I just couldn't. I don't know why I wasn't feeling it. And he goes, your vagina was cold. And I'm just like, oh God, how that must feel to just, your wife just has a cold vagina.
It's pretty funny.
So that happens sometimes.
Oh gosh, yeah. We have these partners in life and it's so easy to coexist. It's so easy to become roommates and it's so easy to just go through the motions. And that's not really a way any of us should want to live. And it doesn't have to be like
anyone's
that.
goal, right?
No, it isn't. But I think we sometimes just say, well, that's just the way it is. And that's just what you expect when you get to a certain point in your adult life. And that's a little sad cake. So how can we fire that back up? And how can we manage all of our responsibilities and still like the person that we're living with?
Yeah.
And give and receive from that person on an intimate level and not just having our kids crawling all over us all the time. So we thought Amanda would be a good re-guest to come back. We touched on so many things. And if you haven't listened to our Going Down to Pound Town episode, it's a real eye-opener.
It's a real vagina opener.
It's a real
There's some jade eggs involved.
There's so many things involved, but she's just a wealth. And so we're going to ask her some questions, mostly brought to you from our Band of Mothers Facebook group, which you should absolutely join if you haven't yet. And let's talk about it.
We got a special guest.
Special guest. Today's special guest is actually our first recurring guest.
I know. We brought someone back.
We
to
did.
the pod.
It was one of our most popular episodes, and it's a subject that we could honestly talk about forever. Welcome back to the show. This is Amanda Testa. She is a sex, love, and relationship coach, and expert. And tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yes, thank you so much, ladies, for having me back.
Mm-hmm.
I should note also, Amanda is wearing the coolest fucking pants in life. It's
Like
Monday morning, and they're
sparkle pants.
They're like gold sparkle pants, and I'm into it.
Yes, I have to have something pleasurable to make my day more
See, that's
Yeah.
it. There you go.
fun. So I am a sex, love, and relationship coach, and I work with overwhelmed women and couples to reconnect to their sexuality and really take sex from something that feels like a to do to something they look forward to, as well as find more pleasure and fulfillment in all areas of your life because it's so connected. It's just a
Mm,
vital part of our aliveness.
okay.
I feel like we should have put in our poll that we put up for this episode, like how many of you feel like sex is a to do or something you look forward to, and kind of seen how unbelievably to do it can feel for new
Well,
moms.
I mean, I know a lot of people that like schedule sex, which I think you like, right?
Well, I think there's a positive and a negative to that,
Or,
right?
like, well, we just have to have it, at least once a week, no matter what anyone else is feeling.
Well, I think we can dive into that a little deeper in a little bit, but I think there is something to be said for making time to connect. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like schedule sex, which you can, but it's really just making it a priority and an intention to connect on a regular basis.
Right. I think Tracy means like people who are like, all right, I have to go home at 3:00 today for my wifely duty kind of thing,
Yeah.
which happens.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So
So we took a little poll on our Facebook group, just to see, because we knew we wanted you to come back because obviously you're a wealth of information, and so many things we could talk about, like Shayna said. But we took a little poll, and so the number one thing our band of mothers really want to know is, what are some tips for reconnecting with my partner? I feel like we're just coexisting, which I don't think that there's a couple on the planet that does not at some point feel like they're just roommates. So certainly after having kids, you get into that groove of just everyone has their duties, everyone comes home from work at different times, you get dinner, kids, blah, 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 wake up the next day. And it's sometimes you can go days and you're just like, oh my gosh, I've never even had an actual conversation
I
with
haven't
you.
looked you in the
Yes.
eye.
Yeah, haven't looked you in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly my husband and I will go on a date night and I'll be like, oh, wow, there you are.
Right.
There's so many things I want to ask you
Yeah.
that I just haven't had time to say.
It's so true because we get so caught in the routine and it's so busy. And especially with young kids, they require so much of your time and attention. And I think this is one of the most common complaints I hear with moms, and that it's just really hard to feel like you have time or feel like you have any desire. And it's just, you get into that situation where you're just going through the motions, you're roommates, and really that's not a good place to be.
So, I mean, do we all agree that that's kind of how you get to that place of feeling like roommates? It's just life gets busy and overwhelming, and there's only so much energy we can all expend in a day. And then, at some point everyone goes to bed, but half the time people don't even sleep together anymore because someone's snoring or someone stays up later to do work and someone else is totally
Or your
burnt
kids
out,
are in your bed.
or your kids are in your bed. Exactly. So, I mean, are there other situations that cause people to kind of get to that roommate thing, or is that just the general?
Well, I think one of the things that happens, especially in long term relationships, is that you get to this comfort zone area and, kind of all the novelty, all the newness is wearing off, and you just get into these routines. And I think that can be a trap in a way because that coziness is amazing and it feels so good. But, really the novelty and the excitement and the fun that happens when you first get together with someone kind of starts to fade away. And it's easy to put your relationship on the back burner because you have so many responsibilities and the duties with the kids. But I love to present a mindset shift in a way of how to view it all. Because, yes, it is true. It's exhausting having kids and they are constantly needing something.
It's exhausting being an adult.
Yes.
I'm
And,
just so tired.
exactly. And I think too, and for the partners, they can feel neglected or, too, they get busy. And I think there's a lot of depression in middle-aged men that doesn't get talked about. But so, everybody's struggling. So,
Mhm.
and so, you're busy and you're just trying to pay the bills and get through the day and not kill anyone.
And you don't love your job. And, I
Yeah.
know, sitting at a desk all day is not good for anybody in their 40s or
Yeah.
30s or 20s or anybody.
Yeah. Well, it certainly sucks the life juice out of you.
Sure.
Okay. So mindset shift.
Yes. And so, it's a lot of our societal conditioning and everything that we've been taught is around that. And no matter how things have changed, really, if the mother and the partner or the husband are both working, there's still like a primary caregiver typically. And and a lot of times it's the woman because that's just how our culture is. And so no matter what you're doing, you still probably have a lot of responsibilities with the caretaking on your plate as well. And so, and society wants us to make that our main focus and kind of just give everything to our families and to our children, and just really, it sacrifices a lot of who we are. And I think what happens in that losing the desire bit is that it's a huge part of who we are. We're sexual beings. I mean, when you think about it, how does the kid come along in the first place? Through having sex, right? And then the kid comes along, and then that really struggles because in our society we're kind of taught that sex and motherhood don't coexist, or there can be a change in how you view yourself or your partner, or how they view you once you have the kids. And so it's like, really, I love how Esther Perel, she's an awesome relationship therapist and expert, and she's written lots of books like Mating in Captivity and State of Affairs. But she says that, it's kind of maybe she doesn't say these words, but just how, you're going to shift this conformity mindset and like really change it by saying, you know what, we actually can put the focus back on the couple versus just the kids. And I think,
what do you mean by society? Like, I understand that there's a societal, working relationship, like the mom is expected to do more just because of our culture, like you were saying. But when it comes to losing your sexual, like, where does that come from in that particular?
The desire piece, because you just get so busy doing other things and you lose that part of yourself.
So, but where does society come into that?
Because I think that is where we are conditioned that we have to do everything.
Okay.
And we have to like bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and never let you forget you're a man, right?
Right.
And
or even just like nowadays, which is like, to have worth, you need to be making money too. And it needs to be a dual income family. And you need to be doing that and being the best mother and being on the PTA and breastfeeding all at once go.
You have to do it all. And you have to, never make a mistake. And I think in either whether you're a working mother or whether you're a stay-at-home mother, there's all this pressure to do so much. And many women who have decided to stay home, maybe they do still have that type A drive, and they're like, well, I'm going to be the best mom ever. We're going to have the best play dates ever. We're going to do it all. And then still there's just a deep part of you, that erotic side, that's missing. And
I have a question.
Yes.
So I've never actually really thought about it until this moment, but do you think, I get the honeymoon period dying down with your partner over a long-term relationship. Does it really plummet post-baby? I mean, what am I trying to say? Do you think women, after they become mothers, say, well, the hot sex part of my life is kind of done? Like, that was pre-baby, and then there's post-baby sex? I've never really thought about it. Is that a thing? Or
I think people think that, but it doesn't have to be that way.
But do you think people think that?
Definitely people think that.
They just kind of tell themselves,
or people kind of, they'll be afraid that, what if the kids walk in, or I don't want them to hear me, or this, that, and the other, which actually it's kind of a great thing for your kids to see you have a relationship with your partner.
Totally.
Because when they see you kiss or when they see you hug each other, then they see that you're complete. They don't need to help fulfill that side of you, right? You just be a kid and play. Like, I've got this part covered. Because a lot of what happens is we get so involved in the kids that we get so many of our needs met from that we stop needing it from our partner. So when you're holding a baby all day or getting cuddled and kissed, and
that
for
intimacy.
The woman, you're getting all those needs fulfilled, and your oxytocin is fulfilled, and that touch need is fulfilled, but your partner doesn't get that.
So when you crawl in bed at night and you're just like, finally no one's touching me.
So it's maybe not that you don't have anything left, but you have fulfilled all those needs for yourself.
Like chemically.
Okay.
That's interesting, and also very true. I mean,
totally true.
I certainly have had conversations with my motherfucker where he feels like I give so much more physically and just gently and just intimately to the children and the dog.
Yeah. Well, that's what it says. A lot of our communication or connection can be through the kids or the pets or whatever, and we stop doing that through each other.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a point where with children you get your oxytocin, you get those cuddly needs met, but there's no, obviously you're not moving on to more intimacy. But with your husband, if you just want to snuggle,
Right.
then there's always in the back of most women's heads, like, well, if I'm just snuggling up and we're being cute, and even if we're kissing, well, now we have to go upstairs and do it. And maybe that's, you don't really want to do that. And especially if there's like a lapse in time when you've gotten together, then so it's easier. I can see how it's easier to project that onto your kids and the dog.
Well, and it's also, I mean, I literally say that back, like, well, they're not trying to fuck me,
Mm,
And so it's if I'm not there, like if
sure.
I'm exhausted and I just don't feel like having sex, that there's really very, and maybe I'm totally sexist for thinking this, but it's just like there isn't much of a way to cuddle and be intimate without that expectation.
Right.
I think, especially if it's lacking, like simply because of circumstance, not because we don't love each other or because you're not attracted, but if
Yeah.
time and responsibilities and all those things are making sex less, occurring less, then therefore, if I go anywhere in that direction, that's what's going to be wanted.
Yeah, it's the whole massage idea. Like, everyone's
Sure.
like, oh, massage leads to sex, but why can't you just get a back massage because your back hurts?
I mean,
Well, I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, because that is something that's very important in your relationship, is to be able to communicate yes or no and not feel any expectation around it. And so that's another
impossible
society thing where you think that there's all these expectations, but if you're able to communicate it and talk about it and have your partner understand why you don't always want it to lead to something else, like it doesn't always have to lead to sex, and why you need to be able to talk about that. And that's a hard thing to discuss,
Well,
because a lot of
especially in
times,
the moment.
yes. And I think that's why it's good to have these conversations around things that are coming up in your relationship, not in the heat of the moment.
How do you
Because
do that?
you can set up a time, or just, not even setting up a time, but find a time, be like, I'd like to talk to you about something. Is there a good time that we can both be present and available for a conversation? I mean, I think like anything important you want to talk about. And so that's like the number one key. You don't want to just butt into someone when they're in the middle of another task or working on
Mm,
something else and be like, I need to talk to you about this.
right, because you
So
want to talk about it right now.
the first thing is to just make sure that the other person is ready and available for the conversation, and that you are too.
I think that you need to say, look, I want to talk to you about something, but we really, really need to listen to each other and not get defensive. Like that's always like,
Mhm.
I feel like the first thing is, oh, this person is telling me something I'm doing wrong.
Well, yeah, because when you say I want to talk, then you're like, oh shit, well, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're already defensive and
Right.
you haven't even had the conversation.
And I think that's the thing. One of the first things you need to learn, and this is what so many couples come to me for, is to help communicate, because we've never been taught how to communicate well. And we don't really listen. A lot of us, I can speak for myself too. It's a practice to learn to listen to the other person, just to listen and not be thinking in your head, what am I going to say next? Or
Mm.
this is pissing me off, so I got to bring this other thing up.
Mm.
So and I think one of the things to get in the habit of is just having regular meetings, if you will. So you talk about whatever in these meetings, but there's a regular time for you to talk about things. And so then it's not like, well, great, now we have to have a conversation, I'm in trouble. Or it's just that you have a regular time.
It's like our business Monday
Yeah,
morning meetings. Like you
it's
just have it
true.
scheduled.
But you think about any other organization that's run efficiently, you communicate. And like you think that you're running a family is pretty much like running a business. Let's be honest, there's a lot to manage. And so having time to like discuss things is really important.
So that makes sense. So you're like, okay, Sunday mornings with a cup of coffee, do you tell the kids like mom and dad are going to go sit on this couch and y'all have to figure it out?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, sometimes it's okay. They can watch a show.
Yeah.
sure.
It's it saves the day many times. But yes, so then you can know that you can have this time where you're both agreeing to be present for each other, to talk about whatever it is. And often too, your partner might start to enjoy this, because at first it's a lot harder sometimes for men to be vulnerable and open up and talk. But the more you do it and the more you build that trust that you can be there and not start a fight and just be able to really listen to each other, the more they'll open up and the more they can share a lot what's going on with them, because a lot of times they're struggling with things too.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of times there's women that come to me and they're the ones that want more intimacy than their husband, but maybe they're stressed out and they are struggling with something else, and they don't want to talk about it. So instead they shut down. So just once you start building that trust with each other and starting to learn to communicate and do that on a regular basis, it becomes much easier to bring these things up. You're like, okay, well, here is what I am wanting more of. And here's what would it be fun if we tried this? Or, and I think when you bring about it in a more of a curiosity, like how can we explore this versus like getting in a fight and talking about we never have sex, we got to fix this. Because no one ever gets turned on by talking about how they never have sex. Usually that just ends up in a fight. So it's more
It's like
focused.
the last thing too. Like someone's like, we don't have enough sex. And you're like, okay. I mean, like that's like
it's
not,
a
it's not gonna,
total- yeah.
it's like not gonna
It's
make
not
you
going
have
to solve
sex.
anything.
So if you're really at a place where you're just coexisting and maybe it's even a little bit worse than that, like you're kind of starting to feel that schism and in that rift between the two of you, I would imagine even getting to a place where you're like, we need to find a place to talk once a week. I'm not sure if I ever told my husband that we need to have a meeting that would ever go over well. If I choose the language,
you can choose the language that works.
But how do you even get to that place? Because so many things that we especially read on our Facebook group are my husband doesn't, he works all the time. I'm grateful I'm home, but then he's gone. He's got his days. He needs his basketball games. He needs to hang out with his buddies after work. Like he's got all these things he needs. And I feel guilty telling him that I need him home with me. So if that's the case, like how do you even get to a place where you find, let alone a date, but just a time to actually talk and keep consistent with it?
Well, I feel like when you were saying this, my first instinct was kind of like what you're saying, which was like, oh God, that's going to be just another fucking thing he has to do and he's going to resent me for.
Right.
But then I started thinking about it, and my husband is somebody who works very, very hard and then kind of likes to shut it down when he comes home. He wants to come home and he wants to be relaxed and he wants to spend time with us and not have to think about these things. But then I thought about it, like, as Amanda was talking, actually making it something kind of official and regular,
sacred almost.
Yeah, and really just because like you said, sometimes it really could be about nothing, but it's almost like when you're both know that your defenses have to be down, and even if it's a 15-minute conversation, I almost think that men might really appreciate that instead of an in the moment nag.
That is so true, because the more you are able to talk about that, the less likely you are to attack. And who wants to go home when they're being attacked? Who wants to answer the phone and be like, where have you been? Who wants to come home and be like, you need to do this, that, and the other, like immediately? No one wants that. I mean, we don't want that. And I think just kind of remembering the way you communicate, it's like, it's hard sometimes to remember that you like each other. And I think that's where it begins. Like when you're starting to feel that real disconnect, it's like taking a hard look at what do you want for your relationship? What do you want for your family? Because without the couple, there's a different aspect to the family, right? Like there is no family unit once there's a divorce and there's single parents, and then there can be different family units. And so there's all kinds of things that can happen there. But if you want to create this family with the partner that you have to make that a priority. It's like anything. If you want a healthy body, you have to eat well and exercise. You can't not go to the gym and eat pizza all day and think that you're going to be in the greatest shape of your life. It's the same thing with your relationship. If it's something that you value and you want to have that family and that happy relationship, you have to devote time and energy to it. And I assure you, 9 times out of 10, your partner wants that too. Like they don't want to be in a miserable fighting relationship. No one does.
Right.
And so one person might just pull back and not come home as much to avoid it. The other person is stuck there.
And there's the resentment.
And then there's the resentment.
So, one of the things I would say in that situation is to start really writing down, what is it that you want in your relationship? Like, what is the vision that you have? What are the things that are important to you in different areas, like for parenting, for sex, for, whatever the things are that are important to you, what do you want that to look like? And then you can kind of start to organize your thoughts before you bring it to your partner so that you can come with a really strong why behind what you're talking about. Because I think that helps them to understand. So once you've created that space where, you can talk to each other, everyone's in the position to listen, then the second thing is express why this is really important to you. Because the why part is big. So it could be, I miss you. I miss us. I miss spending time with you. And when you are gone every night and on the weekends, I feel lonely and I feel like I have a lot of weight to bear and I really miss spending time with you. And so for me, if you could spend one night a week at home with us versus playing basketball, that would make me feel really seen. It would make me feel really valued. It would make me really make me feel like you appreciate all I do, for our family while you're busy on the road. And I think it's like changing that mentality. And this is where the men need to step up too, is to have that thankfulness and be like, thank you for all you do. Because of you, I'm able to go and travel. Because of you holding down the fort, I'm able to do all these things. And I think one of the things that you can look at, and I love, this is another thing Esther Perel says, is that you can have one partner that's focused on like the main family giving partner, and the other partner really be focusing on the couple. Like you're
that's
responsible
interesting.
for keeping the couple part of me alive while I deal with all this, because that's one more thing I can't think about. So it's like remembering that you still are an erotic being, and how can you connect to that and what lights you up. So anyways, but really explaining why it's important to you and what your request is, and then also giving them an opportunity to respond to that.
I was just
So
going to
it's
say,
not-
because even hearing that, I wish you could be home more. I could see that the instant response would be, I'm too tired. I need to blow off steam. When I'm home, I have to change diapers and you want me to do dishes. Yeah. I mean,
Right. But then what can we give as partners too? So like in that conversation, maybe going prepared with something like,
Mhm.
And when you are home, I will be better about
Right.
doing this or laying off of you about this because I'm appreciative and grateful that
Mhm.
you're here with me.
And that's-
Because they really, sometimes they just need to hear that.
yeah.
Right. That's
know?
so true. And that's something that I miss there. Before you talk about your request, is like, say something that you truly, honestly appreciate about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like start with that, a positive appreciation, and then explain why this thing is important to you, whatever it may be. And then your request, what you would ask of them and then let them respond. Like, is that something you feel like you could do? Or what ideas do you have?
I
Right.
love
And then make it a
I love
conversation.
I love the couple responsible thing, because I feel like to use just the basic, most popular example, the mom is the caregiver, runs the household, may or may not also be working, is taking care of the kids. That's so much. And then constantly feels guilty about not wanting to have sex, or maybe even feels guilty about being resentful towards her partner. But if the partner said, if you could agree, like, okay, you know what, I'm going to work, I'm doing the male role, but I'm in charge of us. Like, that seems like something tangible that a dude could actually really handle, and without any sort of conflict. I kind of love that division of responsibility.
And I think too, when you bring it up, because you're taking the responsibility for how you feel about it, you're not really saying that you're doing this wrong. It's like, I feel like this because I'm alone a lot with the kids and blah, blah, blah. You're like taking responsibility for your experience, and then offering what you would like their help with or what you want from them. And then they can respond if that's doable or not, or what they could do.
And just to be clear, like this isn't something that, in my opinion, shouldn't be done on a date night. A date night
Yes,
should
no.
be for having a
Yeah,
drink
exactly.
and enjoying your
Yeah, that's what she's saying. This is your
That's why
scheduled
you
meeting
right.
time.
I just
Because
wanted
then-
to be clear.
That's very true, because those are, and it doesn't always have to be like, I think date nights is such a great thing to do, but it could be any time of the day, and just really making a priority to spend time regularly.
I think even date nights. I mean, I remember in the early days, like even date nights are a lot of pressure, because it's like New Year's Eve, right? You don't get to do it very much, and you have all these expectations. You have 2 glasses of wine, and all of a sudden you're bawling at the dinner table because you haven't talked to each other for so long, and there's just this flood of
Right.
emotions and things to catch up on, and miscommunication, and I'm speaking for myself. Like, sometimes I think I put too much importance on date night, when instead it would just be nice to just go like see a movie. I'm like, no, we have to have dinner, we have to talk, and we have to do it all in a few hours because we don't get the time, and that's when blow-ups happen, at least in my family.
So, and if maybe once a week isn't realistic to have a scheduled time to talk, just whatever works for your schedule. And like anyone, we're human. We're gonna go through phases when we're better at it than others. But I can tell in my own relationship, when we make it a priority, we do our team test meetings, we call it.
Oh,
I
I'm
love
team
that.
T.
Yeah.
I think being a team, that was like, we read that in a book I've told a million people that. Like, if you're a team, if you're team T, team Testa, team Brian, it makes everything different, I think.
It totally does, because it reminds you we're on the same page, we have the same goals, we are on the same team.
You're on the
'Cause
same
it's easy
team.
to forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is really
And your
easy to
children
forget
are the enemy.
that. They're on the other team.
You are defense.
How do you win? How do
They
you
are
beat them?
offense.
Exactly.
Okay, so all right, so we're still coexisting, but we've set up a team time, a team
Mhm.
meeting. What other things?
So I think the other thing is every day making it a point to write down one thing you appreciate
Mm,
about your partner. Because it's easy to make a list of all the things they don't do or all the things that piss you off about them. But as hard as it is thinking about one thing that you can appreciate about them.
mm,
Let me
mhm.
ask you about the moms out there who, you know, are racking their brain trying to think of something they appreciate. What if you just are going through a time where you just don't really like your partner? What then? Is that just
I'm sure there's still probably one thing you can appreciate, as small as it may be. Maybe
Mhm.
that they don't leave poop on the seat of the toilet. I mean, literally, like whatever
Set
it could
that
be.
bar real low, ladies.
I mean, they're not the kid. Like, at least you're not cleaning their diaper. I mean, maybe you are, and that's okay too if you have to do that. But I'm just saying, just think of one little thing.
Well, if you get to that point, isn't that the point where you start to explore other options for your
Well, yeah,
marriage?
that's my
Like maybe
question.
it's
I
time to
mean,
move on. If
I mean,
you
if
can't
it's that hard.
honestly think of anything.
but when you're in the middle of young kids and you're really not happy in your marriage, I mean, this exists. This is a
It
very
totally
true
does.
thing.
Yeah.
And, that is not the time to get that you feel like
No,
you could
but that's-
possibly get
but
divorced.
writing, thinking of one
Yes.
thing actually does start to shift
Yes.
your mind. I'm finally starting to understand
Yes,
this whole gratitude mindfulness thing, because it really does. When you actually force yourself to be thankful for something,
Yeah.
it does change the way you look at the world.
It really does. And it's a mindset shift. And it's all about how you choose to see things. Because you can always see the bad, but you can always find something good to see. I was actually at the TEDx in Boulder this weekend. And the woman who has the Netflix special Abducted in Plain Sight, which don't watch it if you don't want to get upset. But anyways,
thank
just
you.
her resilience and just how, like, through everything that happened to her, lots of tragic things,
Tragic.
she was able to find something to write about every day that was good,
Mm.
no matter how hard it was.
Gosh.
And
Wow.
after that was so inspiring to see and listen to, it's just like we always have this choice. And we can choose to bitch and complain, or we can choose not to.
Mhm.
It's easy to feel like you have to be included in that. And sometimes it's hard when we change the way we talk. Our friends maybe won't like that, or they don't want to, feel like they're the only one complaining, or
Well,
they'll
misery loves
yeah,
company.
it's so true. And so it's kind of hard at first when you start to shift. And maybe some people will drop away, but the people that you do want to spend time with and that share your beliefs will show up. So sometimes there's a little shift that happens.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to find the silver lining sometimes when you're
It so
in the
is.
trenches, and so that's
Oh,
a really great reminder,
yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so we're thinking of one thing that we actually like about our partner. What else?
And then also, it's so important to make yourself a priority again in some way. Like, do something every day that nourishes your sensual self. And that's really hard for moms. And it's really hard when you're busy. But when we become so disconnected from what lights us up, and not just sexually, just in general, then we have nothing to give anyone
Mhm.
else. I mean, I can't say it enough. And I preach this all the time. And I know it's hard for people sometimes, but you can make 2 minutes for yourself and doing something that lights you up, whatever it is. If it's reading a book for 2 minutes, it's like massaging your face or whatever it takes, but you can make that little bit of time to nourish yourself. Because when you think about it, when you first started dating your partner or when you first got together, things were all exciting and new, and you probably
Shaved your
were-
bush.
Yeah, I was
you
just
could
gonna
we
say.
talked about that last time, but you were probably doing a lot of things that lit you up. And the more busy you get with life and kids and everything else you're managing, that falls away.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of lose that part of yourself, that creative side, that part that's, that can have fun. And we forget to have fun a lot of the time.
Yeah, even if it's just playing music or your favorite podcast, the Pump and Dump podcast,
Exactly.
while you're doing your dishes.
Exactly. It's why the Pump and Dump is so awesome, because you need that release to go and laugh and have fun and do something that reminds you that you're more than just a diaper changer. You're more, you're more than just a
Blowjob
mom.
giver.
Yeah. You have a lot of aspects to yourself.
I have a question about television in that scenario.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, is Ellen watching Ellen? Is that something that lights you up? Is that the same as listening to a podcast? And then in terms of a couple, I mean, I've always defended the fact that my husband and I have a TV in our bedroom. We don't even have a TV on the main floor of our house. We don't watch a lot of TV as a family, but like that definitely is our time that we do love to. And Shay and I are
we
the
do it
same.
too.
Is watch TV at night. and sometimes I'm like, I know we should be talking. I literally can't form sentences right now. I just need to like laugh next to a breathing human adult and then go to sleep. But I also see that, a lot of people say TV numbs you. It's a way to check out. What are your thoughts on that?
And what does that have to do with Ellen?
I'm sorry. Thank you for. Well, I'm just thinking in terms of you're saying do something that lights you up, but does light like or fulfills you is sitting down to watch
Or numbing your brain for a minute.
Yeah, is sitting down to watch a show this in the same vein as reading
An
a
oil
book
bath.
or taking a bath or going for a walk or
Right.
I think as long as it's something you both enjoy.
Well, I'm
And-
sorry. There's two things. There's one. There's the you thing for the mom who needs to like remember that
Yes.
she's a human and not just a diaper changer. And then there's also as a couple.
Yeah, I think it's the conscious aspect of it because you can always numb out consciously where you're like, I'm totally going to just chill. Can't form sentences. I just want to lay next to you and laugh together. That's one thing versus where you do it every night just so you don't have to like think about anything else or, it's
Talk.
numbing out. Or when it's the point where it's to not feel something, if you
Mhm.
can consciously say, okay, what is it I don't want to feel in this moment? And am I choosing to do this because I just don't want to deal with it, or I know I'll deal with it eventually, or that you're never dealing with it and you're just shoving it down where that's going to be a problem.
Right. Like, am I smoking this weed so that I have a really great time in my bath listening to music? Or am I smoking this weed because I don't want to talk to anybody or deal with anything and I just need to fall asleep?
Right. And if some nights are like that, that's fine. But if that happens like every night,
Yeah.
then that's not fine.
And then if you're a couple who just like sits down and watches TV night after night after night, like that's kind of your thing, is it because you enjoy it together and maybe you talk about it later, or is it because you just don't want to have to talk to each other and you're still awake?
Mhm.
That's the
You know?
question, right?
I know. And
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, in your professional opinion, is that the point where you're like, you know what, we should at least try to play cards? Is
Yeah.
that where you start to acknowledge that this is just such an easy way for you to, or is it okay?
Yeah. I mean, I personally am a big fan of no screens in the bedroom, but I know that doesn't work for everyone. But I do think that's important because it's very easy to make it a habit. But if it's once in a while and you enjoy it, I think that's fine. We love to watch a movie every once in a while. Like we hardly ever watch TV, but when we do, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's again being conscious of it. It's
And the
is
why.
this- yeah. Is this really bringing us closer together or not?
Well, and so for an individual mom, like, is your me time, I just need 20 minutes in front of a television with nobody bothering me, and that actually brings me some peace and makes me
Mhm.
happy? Or is it,
I just can't.
I'm neglecting all of my duties right now and I've locked the door and my children are screaming outside, but I really want to watch Ellen?
Yeah. I think it depends, and it's being just aware, just having more awareness around the things that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't easy, I know,
Yeah.
but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So to sum up how not to coexist, then what would you?
So I think we talked about, just making time to have conversations that you can just talk about things that are coming up so that you can communicate regularly. So
Mhm.
then that way you can communicate more about everything in your life, not just sexually, but just everything, and feel like you're building this sense of trust where you can both talk to each other. And then, creating those moments where you think about something you can appreciate about your partner, writing down something you appreciate about your partner every day. Then making that time every day to nourish yourself in some way, and just not just the mom side of you, but
Mhm.
nourishing yourself.
Well, that brings us to, a huge part of this, which is just feeling good about yourself, right? And I was thinking when you were talking about finding that one thing to be grateful for in your partner, like, gosh, we also need to do is find one thing every day we actually like about ourselves. And I feel like, we've been talking about this a lot with like summer coming up and everybody getting into their swimsuits and kind of having to feel like a woman and not just a mom. How do we teach ourselves to be kind
Mm.
Yes,
to ourselves and bring that to the table? Because our partners feel that.
that is so huge. It's a big part of it. That's why a lot of the work that I do, it starts with you just nourishing your basic needs and feeling good in your body. Because, if you don't love yourself and you don't feel good in your body, why would you want to share it with anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing. And I think it's starting the gentlest and most easy way to start, I think, is just really learning to look at yourself with appreciation. You don't have to love it, but you can just look at your body and try to think of something kind or appreciate something you appreciate. And if you can't appreciate it yet, then you can just at least witness it.
Can you give us
So-
some examples?
So, for example, like you have maybe stretch marks all over your stomach, and no matter if you've lost weight, you still have like the saggy stomach when you lean over to do a plank. So you can just look at that and be like, I see you. And that's it. And that may be it for a while. But after a while, after seeing it, you can be like, you know what? That's pretty fucking cool that I gave birth to 2 children. I gave life to humans. It
Yeah.
was the most powerful thing. I mean, and just honoring that for a moment. Because I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah,
But,
I'm like, yeah, no.
but I mean, the more I'm telling you, it's a journey. It's a journey.
I mean,
and
I
it takes
appreciate
time.
a lot of things about myself for sure, but I really dislike more things than I appreciate. So I can look at myself and appreciate myself, but that does not mean I'm ever going to get to a place where I'm just like, yeah, girl. Like, I can't ever see that
I don't
happening.
know, Tracy, because when you think about, like, remember that woman in the airport yesterday? Was that yesterday? I have no idea what day it is.
No, I don't know. What?
There was like this older lady. She was probably in her 70s, and you were like, there I am at 70. And she was dressed in this like beautiful long skirt and this like flowy shirt and
And
she
hiking
had
boots.
hiking boots, and she had like white hair that was like your length of hair, and she was sporting like, you know, no makeup but like this really beautiful red lipstick, and she was like hippie, like her body's so imperfect, but like you do aspire to be completely comfortable in your body. I mean, like that is what you see for your future. And I've
Mhm.
always admired that about you, because I cannot picture myself as an old lady. When I picture myself as an old lady, I have like dyed bright red hair, probably more tattoos, and I'm doing yoga till I'm 95 with like the hottest body. Like I can't let go of it. And
Oh.
you seem to, you're sitting here saying you can't even imagine you being completely, but I feel like that is what you see for your future.
No, it's not. That's
No?
weird that you picked that up. No.
I mean, with the white, letting your hair go
I
white,
think I just
and
liked
like,
her clothes. Like, it has nothing to do with her body.
but you've always said like you'd let your hair go and like you would.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's definitely some things that I mean, we've talked about this. Like, I probably, you know, like Botox isn't my jam.
Yet.
Well, I just don't
Just
think it is, you know. So like, I can appreciate a lot of things, but like, I just hate so many more things. I
And-
just can't ever imagine like waking up on any given day and just like being at peace with myself, like ever.
So, what would it take to imagine waking up and being at peace with your body?
Losing 40 pounds and I don't even know. Changing my nose. I mean, I just like, it's so superficial, but I'm just being honest. Like, I can't ever imagine, I mean, like different hips. Like, I don't know, everything. Honestly, I really can't imagine it.
Gosh, so many. I'm imagining that so many people are
Yeah,
listening to this right now,
resonating.
being like, I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, I'm
And-
just being really honest. I mean,
Yeah.
I hear this whole self-love and self-appreciation, and I'm like, I get the body love, and I'm so proud of people that can say they can do it. I honestly don't think I could ever do it. I mean, I've always. I mean, I look back at my 20-year-old self, and we've all done that, and been like, oh my God, why did I ever think about anything that was negative? I was perfect. But
Sure.
now, I mean, I only see the future, and I just can't imagine doing it.
Right. And I'm curious, what would, when you get to those, when you lose the 40 pounds, maybe get the new nose, what will you feel like
She's
then?
not gonna get
I'm
a new
curious.
nose.
I'm curious if you did.
I'm sure I would be beating myself about something else for sure.
That's kind of what it is. It's like we will always have that part of us that's going to beat ourselves up. And that's just as humans. We have that ego side that's going to just try to constantly say something that we don't necessarily agree with. And we all have those parts of us. And so I think it's kind of understanding that there's that part of us that's going to beat ourselves up. And we just have to learn to allow it to say what it wants to say and then choose not to listen as much. And that takes
Yeah.
time to kind of, so then the part of you that does see value in you, the part of you, maybe it just appreciates your hands
No, I don't even like my hands.
or your voice.
I hate my voice.
Tracy.
I do. I'm just being
Like one of
honest.
the most beautiful women on the planet.
I'm not making this about me. I'm just being
I
honest because
know.
I
No,
think
but
a lot
I
of people
I,
like.
I hope
That's
you
so
don't mind we're
true.
talking about it because it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
No, but I just like, yeah, okay, yes. Where were we going?
Well, just, if you can think one little thing, even know how small, like even it's thinking about that with your partner, like with yourself too, like what's one thing that you can find to appreciate? Or if you could appreciate one thing about yourself, what could it be? If you don't
Yeah.
now, what could
Yeah,
be
no,
something
that's
that
why I
you
keep
could?
saying though, there are a lot of things I do appreciate. I appreciate that I'm smart. I appreciate that I'm, I have a lot of things I like.
You have perfect breasts.
Okay, well, I used to. I don't even like my boobs anymore.
Well, I like your boobs. I'll always
do
like your
like my
boobs. I
boobs.
like the way they float in a hot tub.
I know you do, baby. See what I mean about we've done way more gay things than me
Yes.
gua shaing your
Oh
back.
yeah, so Tracy was gua shaing my neck and I was just out of the shower, so I just had a towel on and I was like, this might be the gayest thing we've ever done, and Tracy was like, it's absolutely not the gayest thing we've ever done.
Not even close. But I will say, my debilitating insecurities aside, and I am very lucky, and that is one thing I do. I am grateful for on a daily basis. It was when I met Johnny and we, fell in love, and I knew he was the one. I'm trying to say this not to cry, but I had to like trust that he just loved me for me, and that was a huge lesson. And so when you don't like yourself, but your partner likes you, that's like a reverse, like reverse trust, I guess. So like if you're having sex with someone and you don't like yourself, but they do, you just gotta like you said, like stop listening and just say, well, they're into it.
Right.
So
Well, it's interesting. We were in a group of women recently, and we were all talking about if our partners had ever like how comfortable we felt just kind of showing them our vaginas. Do you remember that
Who?
conversation? I'm not going to say who on the podcast.
No, us showing our husbands the vaginas or showing
each
other.
other. No,
Well, I
of
don't
course
know.
our husbands.
You and I have been
Sorry,
married for
I'll
a
be
long
clear.
time, Shay.
I'll be clear. We were. It was interesting to me how many in this small group of women, how many of their husbands or partners, it doesn't matter who your partner is, had been like just staring at their vagina and complimented it. Just, oh, that's beautiful, and I
Mhm.
could stare at that all day. And the confidence that it takes as a woman to kind of let that happen and also trust in your partner that he really feels that way. And to be, the reason I bring this up is because that's my relationship. Like my husband loves my vagina. Great. Now you all know. But that confidence, right, that it takes in your partner, that's a sexual confidence. That's an intimacy confidence that I was surprised in our group of friends how many people were like, oh my God, I would never just let him stare at nor would I think he would say anything nice about it. It's just an interesting confidence that it takes to have that kind of intimacy.
Yeah, it's
With your
trust,
partner.
and it's
Yeah. And there's ways to build that. And that's
kind of where I was going. So
yeah,
how do you
there's
build that?
well, I mean, it's definitely not something that happens overnight. And it's definitely sometimes something you might need to reach out for help with, because there's so many great things you can do on your own, which is important. But sometimes it brings up a lot, and you might need someone else to help navigate you through all that can arise. But I think, it's talking about having confidence and just letting your partner look at your vagina. My teacher, Layla Martin, has a beautiful video about this, like on people thinking about their vaginas, if they're beautiful or not. And I think that is a big journey. But honestly, for a self-love piece, this is what I love about sexuality work, because I feel like it really, if you're into personal growth and development at all, it can like cut 7 years off your journey when you start by loving your sexuality first. Like if you can learn to love your vagina, then you can easily learn to love all the other parts of you, because it's the part of us we've been most taught to be ashamed of. It's the part of us we've been told is dirty and bad and wrong. And it's no wonder that we struggle, because why would we let someone look at that when we've been told our whole lives it's dirty, it's wrong, don't touch it? Especially if you've been raised in a religious environment, that it's been like, you'll go to hell if you touch your vagina, or you're going to go to hell if you have sex. And then you get into a relationship, and then not everyone has that experience. I'm speaking for myself, but many of my clients do have religious shame that they're dealing with. And it's no wonder that we don't feel comfortable opening up. It's no wonder that we don't feel comfortable in our bodies. We've been ashamed of it our whole lives. Like imagine if we grew up in a world where our sexuality was celebrated. Imagine if we grew up in a world where menstruation was celebrated.
Yeah.
Where,
Oh my gosh.
imagine if we grew up in a world where we were taught that being a woman and all its shapes and sizes is celebrated, versus the mass media just telling us there's only one way to look to be sexy. There's only one way to be attractive. And we think that, but it's not true, And most men love, most of your partners love looking at your vagina, I'll tell you that. And if you can, again, it's a mindset, it's all mindset. but kind of just opening little by little to feeling comfortable in your own body and letting someone else admire the beauty that you are. Because truly, Georgia O'Keeffe was onto something, right?
Mhm.
We have this beautiful part of us that we've been taught to be ashamed of. And if we can have reverence for it and appreciation for it, it's really a life-changing thing. I know that's probably over a lot of people.
I have
It's
two
like
questions
a
to
lot,
that point.
but
One, is it really the actual physical vagina, or is it what the vagina can do that everyone's, is it the fear of having a truly amazing, mind-blowing orgasm in front of another person and allowing that to happen? I mean, that's a very barrier breaking thing.
Oh, that's
is.
interesting.
So it's not actually, it's one thing to just like peer inside, look at your vagina. It's another thing to like let it do its magic
Mhm,
for both people.
exactly.
And two, I understand that men should admire, and most men do like our vaginas, and women like our vaginas, but do we have to admire a penis in the same way? Because I don't agree with that at all.
I don't know
Well,
if there's
never,
a have to.
never gonna say a penis is beautiful.
Really?
Oh, I
Can
mean,
I-
you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I like a hard one.
mhm.
Sure.
I will say there's a lovely practice that I love to teach my clients on pussy massage and penis massage, because it's a beautiful tantric practice of really taking the time to admire and appreciate each other's sexual centers, really, because it's not something we've ever been taught to do. But the more you do it, I'm telling you, people are like, gross, I could never look at my husband's balls and think that they're sexy. Oh, but
I guess you're right. I mean,
but
I
the
do,
more
I
you
guess. I mean, I don't have
realize-
a problem with, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
do.
just saying, like, the more you kind of change your mindset and have a reverence for it, and like kind of but this is a whole nother sacred sexuality piece that not everyone is willing to go there or wants to, but
Sure.
I think it's important. And it's interesting just how when you can change the mindset of how you view something, how it can shift
I
things.
think
and how-
reverence is a really interesting word. Like, wow, especially for women looking at a man, because I think first of all, I think a lot of women resent a penis, because it's like it's I mean, it looks like it acts, right? It's poking, it's forward. It's very aggressive, and
Yes.
it's very like, it's actually fascinating. Like a woman, it brings you in. A vagina, it envelops you, it
Mhm,
nurtures you, and a
totally.
penis is like me,
Yeah.
like. But to have reverence for it in a different way, and then say like, okay, well, this is this tool that's gonna,
Right.
Right.
Well, and in relation to our earlier conversation, it's finding an appreciation, like what you were saying, basically, understanding that your partner loves these parts of you and that
Mhm.
that's a very natural thing in an intimate relationship. And so not being afraid, it's like the more you open up and you can change your mindset to open up, the bigger turn on that is for them. And that's
They don't give a
just
shit about
something
your stretch marks.
No, and
Like,
and that is very attractive.
mhm.
And attractiveness to men, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I am not a professional, is so much about that too. It's not just, oh, you're smart and you're a great mom and you're cute and I love the way you look in those pants, but also like, an appreciation for that mind-blowing, letting yourself have that mind-blowing orgasm, and that
Mhm.
that is something that's hard to do for people, but if you can get there, your partner loves that so much.
Mhm.
That is men's and probably women's who like women. That is
Well, not even women who like women who like anyone. I mean, it's a turn on for both, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
yes, exactly. I'm
That
just
is-
saying freeing yourself to having that, changing your mindset in a way to know and trusting that they're going to love what you do. I mean, I've been with my husband for 19 years and it's rare that we kind of think of something new. But if something comes up in the bedroom, like I mean, gosh, that's the best, that was the best sex of the year, just
Yeah.
because you opened yourself up to a new
Mhm.
thing.
And that's so true, because most men, they want to see you enjoy it. They know when you're just doing it out of obligation, and they don't enjoy that. They
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, they don't enjoy it.
They don't. They might, but they don't. That's not what they want, and that's actually
Mhm.
what
It's like
is
eating a
big
candy
problem.
bar in the closet.
Yeah,
like
it's a big problem actually. And I think that surrender piece, like you mentioned, Tracy, is so big, because so many women, and not everyone has this story, but there's so many women that don't experience orgasm. That 1 in 3 women experience pain when they have sex. So it's no wonder that we don't want to do it.
Mhm.
It's because most of us don't really understand what it takes to relax, what it takes to really surrender. And when we can do that and kind of lean into what our bodies are capable of, it leads to more self-love because you're like, holy shit, I never knew that was even possible. Like, I think most of us probably, unless you've really done a lot of work in the sexuality realm, which most people don't, we're really living at about 10% of the capacity of pleasure that we have the potential to experience.
So if you're, okay, so we're kind of moving ahead, but if you're not, it's an age-old thing. Like, women are always complaining about how they can't orgasm. Many women can't orgasm with like sex. And I think we talked about this in the last episode. How do you, well, here's one big question, how do you get to a place where you can tell your partner, A, you don't like what they're doing, or they do. And if you're at the sex the same way every time, get through it, roll over, go to bed type of thing, how do you gently tell your partner, this isn't working for me, or I'm sort of repulsed that you do this thing over and over. Like, how do you have that conversation? Certainly not in the moment. And then how do you acknowledge yourself, like what you want?
Right. Well, I think what you mentioned earlier is when you are wanting to express something, but you don't want to criticize. So you can say, wow, that felt really good. Can we try this? So versus be like, go to the left a little bit. Down, you always do that wrong. Can you not touch me so hard? It's just like, and having this kind of a mutual agreement, like when you're in the moment, it's all about being in the moment, because maybe when he did this move this way last Thursday, you loved it, but that doesn't mean you're going to love it tonight. And I think that's the thing to understand is like our bodies are just constantly evolving. So maybe something felt good one night. That doesn't mean it will feel good the next time. And so it's just
and
like
guys are like, that works, so I have to do it the same time every time. That's
Right.
what I have to do.
And I think it's that understanding is like, just being aware and present to what is in the moment. And if it feels good, then let them know. And if it doesn't, say, can we try this? I'm curious what it would feel like if you did this, versus kind of being, don't do that. What could they do instead? Could you try, if they're doing something that doesn't feel good, say, I want you to come do this, something that does feel good.
Well, I know that when I'm down there, you guys can't see the action I'm doing right now. Like for a blowjob, for example, I sometimes will ask, like, does that feel good? Is that, because I don't like not hearing it. So why would they like not hearing it? Like I would prefer to be, if I'm doing something that hurts or that it's not right, like, please tell me right away.
Sure.
I will switch
Happily,
it up.
Yeah. It's not about you at that point.
Yeah. So, it makes perfect sense. I don't know why we block ourselves off to that, because
Like,
they
we're
would
not allowed to
appreciate
say
it.
it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to present 1-2 shift, because when you are constantly having sex the same way, or if you're like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do this, it's just always exhausting and I never have any fun, I would love you to just ask yourself, what if this was the best sex ever of my life?
Like right then in the moment.
What? Yes.
Like while you're doing it, or
just
before
like-
you
That sounds
do it?
depressing. You'd be like, what if this is the best
No,
sex
because when you
I'll
go
ever
into
have?
that mindset, because if you go into it like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do it because he's just going to come in 2 seconds and then going to roll over and fall asleep and I'm going to be left unfulfilled, which happens for a lot of women. Then what if you said, ooh, what if tonight was amazing? What if tonight was the best sex ever? Because that changes your thought pattern going into it. And I can tell you it works, because there's always this crazy random Tuesday nights. You're like, holy shit, what just happened? When you have that mindset versus like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Because
So
you're
it's-
saying if you change that to what if this could be the best sex of my life,
in your mind,
you're
is open to
trying
that
harder
possibility.
too. Like you're
Well, you're just open versus putting in your mind what is already going to happen. You have gone through the motions. You know that's going to be the same thing tonight. Well, what if it wasn't?
but
What
that's
if it was
also on
different?
you to have to do something different too, right? Instead of just like,
Well, it's also,
Yeah.
it's kind of just changing the way you think of it, I think, because, and then being more open to being in the moment. And that's the thing, like being in the moment, being in your body is key, which is difficult. So I can share a couple tips to do that, because that's one of the main things women say, like, I'm so in my head, I can't get into my body. So I would say one of the easiest things you can do is breathe, like deep breathing, and just allowing yourself to get into like a rhythmic breathing pattern, because that is going to start to turn off the cortical control and like shut down that primal brain that's like won't shut up and let you get into your body.
Yeah, sometimes I put a pillow over my face. Is that weird?
she just told you need to breathe.
No, I know.
Like, if you can't,
What
What
is
I'm
that?
saying
What
is,
is
like,
that thing that?
Sometimes if I can't get there, I will just like, and he's down there, I'll put a pillow over my face and breathe and just kind of like go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Like a giant eye mask.
Like a, that could possibly kill me.
They could possibly suffocate you.
But you know what I mean? Like it's totally like, okay, I have to just be here in my
Yeah.
body. And
Yeah, I like the breathing
Yeah.
part.
you
Sometimes,
don't like that. You don't like the pillow over your
What
face.
you do, you Shay. Whatever
but
works.
sometimes, you know, when you are able to close your eyes, you can focus on other senses. And so it's something to play
yeah.
with. Like, what's maybe a sense that you don't often engage with during sex? Maybe the next time you have sex, think about that one.
Like
And be
what?
Like what?
So say
yeah, I'm
maybe you don't
confused.
really think about your hearing when you have sex, for example. So maybe the next time, maybe
Yeah, I
you
do.
put
I'm
on
listening for the children.
well, maybe you put on some music, or maybe you just really listen to their breath, or maybe you listen to your own breath.
Mhm.
It's just something to pay attention to kind of drop you back in. Like, what am I feeling in this moment? What am I smelling in this moment? What am I tasting in this moment?
Can I ask you too? Like, I, I I feel, and this is maybe just being in a relationship for so long, like that I'm kind of responsible, and I feel like maybe Chris is too, for my own orgasm. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like I just kind of take response. It's not that we don't enjoy the doing it together, but then when I'm ready to, that's kind of me.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to be responsible for your own orgasm in a way.
Do you mean like you take care, like responsible? I'm asking you, Amanda, to take care of it yourself, or just decide I'm ready to go.
Well,
I'm
I
not
mean,
going to wait. Or
first of all, I love to say take the orgasm off the table every time you have sex
Mhm.
and focus on what feels good instead. Because when you're just goal oriented, it makes it a lot more stressful, and you're more like tensed and not as like
Oh,
open.
That's a really good piece of advice.
And sometimes it's fine. Sometimes you want like the quick and dirty, let's do it.
Sure.
But the more you can like open up and just be curious about what feels really good, the more that can expand versus doing it the same way every time. And
mhm.
even it's just as simple as like if you're used to like holding your breath or clenching up right before you orgasm, try slowing down and breathing deeply instead and see if you can kind of expand that pleasure.
Mm.
So those are just a couple little tips.
That's a
but
good. I think that's good for. I mean, do you say that to guys too? Is
Mhm.
that
Oh, yes,
possible? Take the
totally.
orgasm off the table.
It is. I mean, I think it's not what they're used to, but that definitely can expand their experience. And they typically enjoy the result.
In your experience, are guys more concerned about their own orgasm or their partners?
It depends. And I think that's the other reason to take it off the table because it's really, there's nothing more annoying than being with someone who's like, you want them to be concerned, but to the point where, like, did you come? Are you going to come? What can I do? You know, it's just that puts a lot of stress on the woman oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, but it's good that when they care about it, because most of the time they do, you know, they want you to. But then also, if you're in the long term relationship and maybe you've never really gotten into it and they're just like, I don't know what I can do, you get into these ruts. So
Mhm.
you have to kind of, when you're feeling that happen, be open to having the conversation like, what could we try? Maybe we could do this. How about we focus on this?
And is that conversation, sorry, in bed or outside of bed?
You can do it both. But I think as long as it's not a negative one, it's one where you can do
Mhm.
in bed, like, ooh, this feels good. I'm curious what this would feel like. And knowing that you can always say no at any time. Like you can always say no to in the moment. You can always say no ahead of time. It's like, I think that's the other thing too. Like we started in the beginning of the conversation talking about saying no and feeling guilty about it, you know, or maybe is it really that you're saying no because you don't want to, or is it saying no because you always say no? Or is it saying no because
You're afraid to let go.
you're like in your head about all these other things and you don't want to even go there?
Mm-hmm.
So it's and it's also the more you build that trust and that communication when you can say no and know that there's not going to be a fallout.
I mean, that seems like a lot of work if you're having trouble communicating. That
Mhm.
seems like it's a pretty simplistic
Yeah, maybe this
statement.
is a lot of steps
Yeah,
ahead of,
there
are.
of
But
sure.
but that's like why you start that initial piece where you talk regularly. So
Mhm.
then you can bring up the harder things
You
and
know,
be heard.
it's hard because we joke about it in the show. You know, we're just like, get it done, girls. You know, like take 7 minutes of your life, just get it done, like for blowjobs, especially. But you know, there is something to be said, and maybe this is just so old fashioned and sexist, and many women would be mad for just. I mean, they really are just so much happier if you can get it done. So you might as well try to enjoy yourself and figure out a way to get it done and not make it such a chore, right?
Well, the
Or
other,
am I?
Well, there's
Or is
getting
everyone
it.
going to like
Well,
send me hate
no,
mail right now?
no. I think there's getting it done for the guy and getting it done for you. I think that's the big
Mhm.
disconnect.
and I think too, one thing we didn't talk about, but you know, in being a new parent, one of the really important things is maybe redefining what sex looks like. You know,
Mm.
maybe it's not penis and vagina sex right away. Maybe it's just touching, or maybe it's like you want to help your partner have a good experience because you appreciate them and you love them.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you give them a blowjob, or maybe you give them a hand job, or something along those lines. Or maybe they're not in the mood, but they can do something for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like,
Mm.
what could it look like if it's not just penis and vagina?
Yeah, because I think there's an idea that like if you don't do it that way, then you're not having sex and you're not really being intimate or something. I'm kind of just spitballing this, but you know, it's like if you're gonna have sex, it has to be the traditional way. And you're
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Because
I
I
don't
think-
feel
I
that way,
don't,
but
but
yeah.
Because I think it's just making it so you realize you're an erotic being and you and your partner are adults and you
Did
have
you say
this
neurotic or erotic?
erotic.
Okay, because I'm a neurotic.
I'm
being.
You
neurotic.
could be a erotic.
That's your new book is the neurotic erotic.
But you know that to just keep that erotic side of you alive, so it's playful and it's fun and it's a little bit sexual, and that even if that's all it is, you're doing good. You know.
So another big question on our group was, I'm just too burned out, and I think we've sort of touched on that. But how do you get from just being so burned out, overwhelmed, and to getting in the mood? I mean, sometimes I feel like there's like I'm so tired and I'm so whatever. I've got so many things going through my head, but I still kind of want to do it, but I don't really have the energy or the brain space. Like, how do you do that?
So I think one we talked about earlier is just making sure you're doing all you can to light yourself up every day in some small way. And then creating some kind of transition ritual. I love those because I think we talked about this on the last episode. Is you have to have something that you do to kind of get yourself in the mood.
Oh,
And that's what I
yeah.
love about rituals and just creating a space. Because think about your bedroom now. Is it a place where you would want to go and have sex, or is it like cluttered with toys? Is there crap everywhere? You know, I think if you just even go in the room and clean it up, there's something to that clearing the physical space, clearing the energetic space. And even if it's as simple as just lighting a candle or something to add more depth to the situation, right?
Mhm.
Something that gives it a little bit more meaning and
Or
intention.
just throwing on a different pair of underwear.
Exactly. That could be it. It's just something that gives an intention to it because intention is so huge. And
Or
I know we
taking a
don't have-
shower, we talked about. Like, if
Mhm.
you have to just like, you know, just wash off and just feel better.
And like I
Yeah.
say, just taking 5 minutes, even just to go in the bedroom and like maybe clear off the bed, light a candle and breathe for 5 minutes. And you know, deep breathing is so good. It just
And then you just
relaxing
fall
yourself.
asleep. that
could
sounds like me.
happen.
I would be like, oh, I've done this amazing ritual. Now fucking don't touch me.
That could be the case, and then you can say no.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Gosh, it's so hard to, it's just hard to go from that, like you said, that transition of these babies wanting your body, giving them all this intimacy, your body being needed for all this
Mhm.
motherhood stuff, and then really feeling like you have to connect. And I think that, you know, even that transitional thing, just maybe that's when you write down what you appreciate about your partner, because
That's a great time to do
You
it.
know?
Actually, it really is because, and then you can remember that you do like them. You're in this committed relationship. You have a family. You want to have a good life. You want romance and intimacy and deep connection. That's what we want. And if we don't find it with our own partner, then that's not, then one or the other of you are going to go look for those needs elsewhere at some point.
And
Yeah.
we just had a friend tell us, you know, her husband's been away, and she's like, "Gosh, you know, husbands do things,
yes,
you know," which I thought was a really. I think sometimes, especially
when you're overwhelmed.
when you're overwhelmed, but so certainly in my circle, like most of my friends are very smart, strong, type A, brilliant, just wonderful women. And I think we tend to just think that we do it all, and that like, oh, it's just us against the world a little bit. And you don't realize that actually, even if they're not there as much as you would like them to, they probably do some things. And it's good to remember that.
Yeah.
And it's good to, and like you keep saying, it's good to remember that you like them.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that's the thing to keep reminding yourself is what is your intention for your relationship? What is your vision for your life and your relationship? And keeping that in mind reminds you why you want to be kind. It reminds you why you want to look for the good. It reminds you why you might want to soften a little bit. And it reminds you why, because I think the other thing too is we get busy and we don't, allow their attention or affection. Because if you can think of a time, maybe you're washing the dishes and they come up to give you a hug, you're like, oh, don't touch me.
Well, yeah.
Versus like receiving their affection and letting them know it's appreciated.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, taking responsibility, like you just said, being kind and appreciative and taking in their affection. I think it's very easy to forget how to do that. And that's not anybody's fault. I mean, that is just a very real thing in a long-term relationship with little children involved. But
and
really,
also realizing that like coming up behind you and giving you a hug doesn't mean he wants to pork you right then.
Right.
And that's on the guy
Probably
too.
means he wants to pork
Well,
you.
yeah, but he doesn't but not pushing forward with it, just, I mean, that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
That both partners have to be affectionate with no strings attached.
Yeah, which is a good conversation to have at your weekly meeting to bring it
At your
back.
team meeting.
Mhm. Gosh, Amanda, thank you so much. You are so knowledgeable and helpful to so many women out there, and we really appreciate it. Where can they find you, and where can what's the best way to
Amanda's like, Tracy, you're signing up for all the things. You have so many
She's
problems.
like, I will help you find your feminine fire.
I actually have my feminine fire. I just
Mhm.
don't like anything else. That's fine. It's good. I'm good. Everything's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding. Sorry. I knew I shouldn't have had coffee.
It's always a journey, some days are better than others for
Yes.
everyone.
Yes.
So you can find me at amandatesta.com, and I actually have some great intimacy practices that I can share if you go to amandatesta.com/intimacy, and you can download just a couple simple things that you can do, kind of a little bit of what we talked about today. And as well as I have a podcast called Find Your Feminine Fire,
Yes.
where we dive into a lot of these juicy topics, and kind of that's a great place to start. And I
Mhm.
have a group on Facebook, Find Your Feminine Fire group as well. Lots of good stuff in there. So you can find me all the usual spots.
We love
It's
you.
always a blast being with you ladies.
Likewise.
We are on tour. We
got a tour
We're on
update.
tour.
Tour update.
Holy hell. Oh, okay. So just a little background for what we're learning in podcast land. Most people record their podcasts, if not several days in advance, several weeks, and have like a schedule. But Shay and I, because we're on tour, we just got back yesterday. Today is Monday. Yesterday was Sunday. We got back. We had 3 hours of sleep,
We did 4 shows in 2 days.
and we're dead inside.
We're a little bit dead inside. I think we made it through that conversation pretty well, considering how dead we feel inside
Conversation.
with Amanda.
Oh,
Hello. We just recorded a podcast.
obviously I'm not. Okay.
That's what you were just saying.
I'm not here now. I don't even know where I am. Yes, we did. Yeah.
We flew to Omaha, Mamaha. We love Omaha.
Omaha.
And you've heard us say time and time again how much we love Colleen Quinn and the Funny Bone. So we did 2 shows in Omaha. Then we got in a car and went to Des Moines
the next
day and did 2 shows in Des Moines. And then after the Des Moines show, got in a car and drove back to Omaha, and then got on a 6 a.m. flight and we're home by 8 a.m. and we're useless yesterday to our families.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
I had to do that thing where if I stopped, I would have I actually did I cleaned out my fridge.
oh my God.
I had to just keep moving. And I think I was like in that weird zone. Like I went grocery shop. I just did all of the, I had to.
I did go grocery shopping, but I actually watched 2 movies with my children, and
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
a beautiful day outside,
I'm
and we should have been
It's
outside.
okay.
We watched Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah, it was. There wasn't really anything.
It wasn't?
And then we watched.
I can't believe you've introduced your kids to Steve Martin before I have.
It was. I was kind of like, you're gonna love this. This is the most funny person on the planet.
on the planet.
And then we watched, and I had never seen it. Dumb and Dumber.
oh, you've never seen Dumb and Dumber?
I don't know why I had never seen it.
It's so good.
Well, I mean, I kind of know why I'd never seen it.
did they die with the X-Lax and the pooping?
Yeah, but what's funny is they're just not smart enough to know, or old enough to know like why they're being so dumb. You know what I mean? Like that's
Right.
funny if you understand that they're being dumb,
Right.
but
They just think they're silly men
they're just like,
with
oh,
bad haircuts.
yeah. So that anyway,
That's
I was unable
hysterical.
to do anything. It was pretty.
I did.
was pretty rough.
I took to my bed at 6:30, and I mean,
took to your bed.
I did. I mean, I like hobbled into bed basically,
Yeah.
and I'm lying there. I'm thinking this is ridiculous. It's like daylight out. Certainly, I'm just gonna watch a movie or something and kind of just gently fall asleep.
You fell asleep.
I fell asleep looking for a movie,
That's amazing.
and then I woke up at 6 a.m. So
Well, I
praise
forgot
God
that,
for
we,
that.
we had a radio interview for our show coming up in Minneapolis
Thanks
that I
for
had to
taking
do
that
at
one.
8 p.m. last night.
oh my gosh, I'm glad you took it.
It
There was no way.
amazing.
Anyway, so that happened. And now we're on our last 3 shows of our parentally
this
incorrect
tour.
of this winter spring tour.
Yeah, so we're going to St. Paul, Minnesota, and then we'll be in Madison, Wisconsin, and then Milwaukee, Wisconsin to end it at the Pabst Theater.
Mhm.
And so follow along on Instagram and join our Band of Mothers Facebook group and
we'll see you at a show. Yeah, come join us. There's still tickets available, and we can't believe we're almost done, and we're gonna blow it out in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Let's do it.
Bye, guys.